Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, there's almost an air, of comedy noir here in this one, but the province in Australia put a ban on all street protests. Now, this was for a limited time, but particularly it was the month of January in Australia that there was no street marches, street protests to be permitted. Then there was to and fro and confusion because various activist and Marxist groups wanted to do an anti-Death to Australia protest march about supposed colonialism and white supremacy and so on. And it appeared, on the face of it at least, that the government was, for this particular province, was going to give a special dispensation so that people could march saying how much they hated Australia, how Australia was evil, Nazi, fascist, colonialist, Hitler, swastika. And so it was okay that if they marched and demonstrated and protested, that was all right. But just there was other marches and demonstrators that weren't allowed. Anyway, this incensed the Islamic activists and those embedded with them, the Islamic activist community in Australia, because they wanted to protest and demonstrate about the goings on in the Levant, like in the Middle East and Israel and Palestine and Gaza and all that sort of stuff. So they wanted to protest that. Well, why don't you go back there to protest it? Why are you protesting in Australia? Haven't you come to Australia to be an Australian in the Australian community? Aren't you leaving that life behind and starting a new life? No, you fucking Nazi, we're not. And if you even say that, means you're a white supremacist, fucking fascist, Hitler, da-da-da. So anyway, they wanted to do demonstrations. So they were claiming to be repressed and oppressed and, we're victims, you racist Nazis not letting us protest and so on. So now I do agree people have the right to protest. So they have the right to block the city streets and block the main arteries such as, bridges and, things like that. Well, no, I don't think so. But if they want to protest in a public area that isn't a thoroughfare, for example, a major park or something like that, and that's approved by the police, then okay, people should have a right to protest in what is allegedly and what our politicians and globalists purport is still a democracy. And we can debate that, but anyway, this is so the Islamic groups, and by the way, they're not operating alone. There's a whole group of NGOs, very well funded, organized, and they get a lot of political and legal, judicial support even for their activism, whether it's green activism, socialist activism, Marxist activism, and the green, socialist, and Marxist, they're almost interchangeable on many issues. But again, with the Islamic activism about what's going on in the Middle East, or has been going on in the Middle East for a while. So when you look at it, just on this Middle East thing, is it new? Is it recent? Did it happen, in October? Well, no, not at all. If you look at the pharaohs from 5,000, let me just repeat this, 5,000 years ago, they despaired about what was the constant upheaval and drama in what today is Israel, Palestine, and so on, Gaza, 5,000 years ago. Then the Roman emperors were constantly wringing their hands and getting irritated and annoyed about the expense and the constant upheavals and drama in what today is Israel and Palestine, and that was 2,000 years ago. Now we can go back to the Crusades and the carry on there over 1,000 years ago, or about 1,000 years ago, and we see the same thing. So that area has been in turmoil for at least 5,000 years. So the idea that something new and it's recent and we've got to do something, no, it's been around for a long, long time. But anyway, coming back to the Islamic groups decided that they thought, well, this is no good. We have to be allowed to protest. And if we consider, say, the recent shootings at a beach in Australia, there's a degree of hypersensitivity about street marches and so on, particularly the marches that say the state of Israel has to be eradicated, river to the sea and da-da-da. So anyway, these Islamic groups, again, embedded with NGOs from socialism and Marxism and just anarchists generally, agitators, they got together and decided they would test the resolve of the government and the police. And they were going to protest the fact that they could not protest. So they got out and protested their inability by law. Now, it was not a legal demo. They had no permit to do it. There was no, so it was a purely 100% illegal street march protest. They didn't close, as far as I understand, didn't close off a major artery, such as a bridge or like a main road or something like that. That's at least my understanding. And that there was a substantial police presence, so there was plenty of police there that could have acted and say, hey, you have to go now. You must disperse immediately. This is an illegal gathering, and we will arrest you if you don't disperse. You have 10 minutes to disperse. But no, instead the police were there in force. There are plenty of police around, but to my understanding, they did nothing. They just allowed the protesters who were protesting. Again, this gathering was illegal. They had no permit. It was not legal. It was banned by the government, and yet the police did nothing. Now, clearly, they were under political instruction to do nothing. And I think if the mob had decided to take over the street and get particularly unruly, the police probably would have moved in at that point. But otherwise, they didn't stop it, and they didn't, to my knowledge, arrest anybody. They didn't arrest the ringleaders. Now, I would argue that the police and the authorities and so on knew all about that these groups were planning to do a protest, and wait for, let me just repeat this, an illegal protest where they had no authority or permission to do so. The police would have been acutely aware of it. The security services have been aware of it. They would have known these people were communicating and gathering and organising to gather, and they could have nipped it in the bud at that point. They could have arrested the ringleaders and accused them quite rightly of planning and organising to flout the law and to act in an illegal manner. But they didn't. They just let the whole thing go ahead, didn't stop it, didn't disrupt it, and so on. And so it went on, and to my knowledge, none of these Islamic agitators and the socialists and Marxists along with them were, to my knowledge, none of them were arrested, and they didn't have to disperse. They did eventually disperse, but not because of the police were arresting them or ordering them to disperse under the threat of arrest. However, there's a straight white male Christian was there saying that Hamas and all these people shouldn't be demonstrating. That it's illegal and they shouldn't be demonstrating, which is perfectly true. But wait a minute, the police arrested him. He was arrested. Not the Islamic people that were flouting the law, but him. He was arrested. But there's no two-tier justice here. He was arrested, and there was another guy arrested who was preaching the Bible or something like that. And he was arrested. So straight white males, not a problem. Motherfuckers, you're under arrest. But the Islamic dudes and the Marxist anarchists with them, nah, we won't arrest them, even though they are behaving illegally and they are flagrantly violating the law. No, we won't arrest them. Nah, they're okay. And this is insane. Are we talking 2-tier, 3-tier justice? What's going on? And I do understand the political sensitivities around the thing. That's not the point. The law applies to everyone. Everyone is equal before the fucking law. That's it. And if you can't have that, can't enforce that, then that's a bedrock of the democratic process and the social contract. And yet there's a total inability to enforce this. But if you want to get together and oppose, complain about mass migration, they're all straight white male Christians. The muscular police response is immediate. They're fucking tough. These are tough guys. They won't take no shit from those fucking straight white male Christians. Arrest the motherfuckers. Throw them in jail. A very different attitude prevails. Now you can sort of put oblique arguments around saying, well, look, we've got a multicultural society that no one voted for, nobody wanted, no one asked for. People are pissed off and upset about it. Too fucking bad, you Nazis. And we just need to keep a lid on this until, over the decades, eventually it just all sort of melts into one miasma and it gets forgotten about. We just need to keep a lid on it for that period of time. It's taking a bit longer than we thought, a bit more difficult than we thought, but that's really our priority. And to keep on doing the mass immigration thing. And one day white people will be such a small proportion of the population that no one's going to give a shit, no one's going to care. And there won't be enough white people to get upset and annoyed about having this imposed upon them without their consent. So that's what we need to do, and that's what the police, the politicized police, are now for. I would argue differently. I would say that the law should be applied equally to all persons, and if that was this Islamic thing, if that was an illegal protest, which as far as I understand it, it was, they had no permission to do it, then these people should be told that you will immediately, arrest them before it even happens would be my position. But if they do gather and again in flagrant violation of the law, then they should be arrested, and that's the appropriate response. And if you're going to arrest a straight white Christian guy, then you have to arrest them all, not just say, if you're straight white Christian, you'll be arrested. But if you're an Arab Islamic dude, then we'll go soft on you. That's not good enough. Well, we have to go soft on them because they'll get upset and they'll riot. Well, then arrest the rioters. For fuck's sake. So that's my take on it. But that's the insanity of the times that we live in. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.